people came up to me and they're like, I got out a really shitty relationship from your book. And I was like, it was supposed to be a fucking fitness book. Like, no one said to me, mate, the way you explain macros was amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. I'm JT. I'm here with Joey and a very, very special guest, Mr. James Smith, also known as James Smith, PT. Go Wild, ladies and gentlemen, the man himself.
Been trying to get that PT out the name for a while.
You cannot.
Mate, can we swear?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
The who's got James Smith is a PT.
Oh,
shit.
Yeah, and he's from he lives about 15 minutes away from me where I'm back home.
Mate.
You asked him?
Yeah, 20 grand sterling. So I offered him like $40,000.
Wow.
And he's like, nah.
And I was
For
like,
an Instagram handle.
I was like, mate, imagine you're an actor called Leonardo DiCaprio, right? And you're not Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh.
You'd be like, come
Mate, come on. Don't make me submit you.
on. Or if there was another Craig Jones,
Yes.
who's a blue belt,
Yes.
you'd be like, and he had the at Craig Jones without the BJJ in it, you'd be like, come on, mate.
Yeah. Leave it out.
It's
Yeah.
like the new wave of web domains. Remember it was all about like who owned the .coms?
.com.
Yeah. Have you got jamessmith.com?
Now we had to go jamessmith.live. I mean, fucking hell, like my mum and dad, like you got one job, right? James Smith, they were like, perfect.
Two most common names in England. Game over.
It's a bit like in 2023, if someone named their son Keith, you'd be like, come on, mate, what are you doing? You had one job and you fucked it. your baby's got a 9-year-old's name.
Now, I just wanted to do a quick intro because for some of our people, I'm sure most of them would have some idea of who you are. The man sitting across from us today right now is absolute internet sensation and superstar of the Instagram realm and has now clearly stated his claim on YouTube. He's planted the flag. He's like, I'm here. Pay attention. And it's awesome. And, I think what's interesting for me is when I first saw your content, James, I was like, man, fuck this guy. And Joey's like, no, he's a nice guy. You should meet him. You'd get on with him. You'd like him. I'm like, no, I can't handle this guy. He's too
Smash
full
that
on.
guy. I think that's what you said.
Yeah, I did say that. I still believe that. But no. and then Joey's like, no, mate, you're the same. You're very similar. Like, just listen. So
Wait, I never said that.
no, you said
I didn't know him well enough to say that would be an insult to James Smith PT.
Mate, shut up. Let me finish on this. I do recall the conversation. You're like, you have more in common than you know. You should listen to him. Don't hate him. And I said, okay. So then I was paying attention. I was like, actually, I do. I do actually. I agree with a lot of stuff this guy says. And I was like, he likes to swear a lot. So do I. This is excellent. And then I was like, you know what? He's actually calling facts on some bullshit in health and fitness. Oh my God, I'm on board with what this guy has to say. And then I found out you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's like, holy fuck, how can I hate this guy? This actually seems all right. And then for a strange parasocial thing, I saw you at a comp, purple belt. Should I have said in the introduction, undefeated purple belt?
Only in weight division. I got beaten in the absolute a few times.
Oh.
Bigger or smaller opponent?
Mate, last one to get me was a blue belt from Sydney West, but I was playing the new game type.
Yeah, of course.
Just trying a few
I was
things
just
out.
pulling mount, like
You got lucky, bro.
no, it was just in the weight divisions, which then I was saying it's ruined competing for me because now I've had my purple belt 2.5 years. I'm like, if I was like, oh, just going to throw into a comp at the weekend and I slip, lose 2-0, I wouldn't be able to sleep. I wouldn't be able to sleep that night. Yeah, I was like, so now I think I've probably only competed like 3 or 4 times at purple belt in no-gi. So I was like, just keep the record. Just keep it perfect.
Retire.
Well, I was like, I was saying that not in a sense like, hey, I'm undefeated. Because someone was like, well, if you can beat him more, you definitely wouldn't be. But I was like, that's why I'm like, people are like, oh, why don't you jump into this comp at the weekend? And I'm like, nah. And like last time, I'm pretty sure I broke my thumb at the last comp as well in the first match. Like, so we're in the absolute, okay. Sydney West boys. I'm chatting to like Josh Saunders, James Saxby, who we had, when he was white belt, this lad from Sydney West, I remember he put a collar tie on me and I looked to my corner and I was like, this is the strongest guy ever. I think I said to him afterwards, you're a tradie. He's like, I'm not. I'm like, you're some kind of tradie. I've never felt strength like that in a man as young as you. Feel like you've had 3 divorces and you worked on 100 building sites. So I'm chatting to these guys. It's an absolute. And like, there's like 30, 40 people in the absolute. So everyone's kind of like, well, we'll fight him for second at this point because Josh Saunders is there just like going around in his pink Crocs. And so these 2 black belts like go out before me and they're having like a real nice roll. And I'm like, do you know what? This absolute division's fucking brilliant. You know, these guys going out, it's almost like they're flow rolling. One of them loses, fine. Then I'm up against this German geezer. He's a blue belt. And dry legs, he just dives in half guard and just goes for a heel hook. And I'm like, mate, this is a long day. It's 9 a.m. Our division isn't till like 2 p.m. What are you doing? He's just trying to yank my foot off. So I see his foot and I just go for this toe hold. I'm like, I'm going to hurt you. And I miss his foot and just rip my thumb out. And I'm in the match just shaking my hand like this is the worst day of my life. And then after that, I was like, but you know, at competition, you're like, I'm going to go, take it easy. I want to be training on Monday.
No, he doesn't know this mentality.
What are you talking about? It's competition. Play to win.
Yeah, I know, but in my head, to excuse the fact, I'm like, just take it easy, and it never happens.
But I was going to say, the first time I met you in person may have been that comp. I don't know. You won, and you were sweaty as. I said, hey, James Smith, I'm JT from Bulletproof. You're like, oh, yeah, how you doing, mate? I said, can we get you on the podcast? You're like, sure, no problem. Yeah, whatever. Other people were coming up and talking to you, and I was like, great. Talk to Joey. I'm very happy that you're here. This is awesome because I think what is great is to get someone like you who's done all the different things you've done, and now it appears to me you are obsessed with jiu-jitsu. Is this true, James? Are you a jiu-jitsu-aholic?
Yeah, and also like, do you know what I love about it is like, so when you experience success in other realms, you find a lot of yes people. You start getting unnecessary praise. You start getting treated a bit differently. Like even something like you look at the financial world, when you fly laying down in a plane, you're treated like a king. Suddenly you go to a nicer restaurant, you get treated like you're better than you are. You know, how many ice cubes would you like in your drink? You're like, no, this bill's going to be massive. But in jiu-jitsu, I love the fact that never happens. And I remember the first time I ever flew first class, I was still a white belt and I had to clean the mats. The gym I was at was white belts would clean the mats.
Right.
And I was on there on my knees going, this is fucking awesome. Like, it'd be very easy if I didn't do jiu-jitsu to lose being grounded. But like still having the fat lad in your gym try and smother you once or twice a week it's good. It's good for your brain. Like
For the soul.
one of the biggest earning days business-wise I had, I went to comp the next week, like the next day on the Sunday, it was like the ADCC trials thing, and I lost in my first match to a heel hook.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, this is nice. Like, and it's always going to be like that. And I think for me, if my social media or even if any of my life had started going well in my earlier 20s, I would have fucked it up. I would have just probably drunk too much, partied too much, done too many drugs, got too many girls pregnant. And the second thing was jiu-jitsu coming into my life at a time where now I drink so much less. And when I go on holidays, I'm even picking where I go, depending is there a gym nearby. Like, I went to Mexico. Someone's like, go to Tulum. There's a Braulio Steamer messaged me. He goes, go to this place, stay here. You can you can do jiu-jitsu on the roof. All the guys in the hotel at 5 p.m. finish and they have an hour off just doing jiu-jitsu on the roof.
Yeah.
And I was like, now I can't go on holiday and enjoy myself unless there's jiu-jitsu. So yeah, it's taken over my life to the point that this kills me, right? Worked in the fitness industry almost my whole life. Every day I walk out of my job, I walk about 100 meters and I do jiu-jitsu at Garage Wollongong, and I spend 90 minutes to an hour giving it my full attention and learning moves or whatever. If I'd never found jiu-jitsu, I could know so much more about strength training, weight training, periodization. I could make so much more money because I would be learning skills applicable to my professional life.
Yeah.
Whereas jiu-jitsu, you're looking at a decade before you're even in a position to monetize, really.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I love it, but at the same time, it's such a distraction from all the other things that you could be doing with your life.
But is that distraction not good in terms of restoring your focus and like getting you out of that?
But
you know what I mean? Like that's.
So I've been, Ryan, my professor, definitely the ADHD thing I was saying to you before, but one of my main training partners has got it as well. Sometimes I'll sit through a whole technique and I'm just thinking about the gym going, we should paint the walls white. Maybe we should do this. Then I'm like, we need new mats. And I'm like, these lights need to be changed. We get around to the technique and I'm like, I haven't been here the whole time. I'm thinking business. But then with Ryan, I'm like, cool. If we got 10% more members, you'd have this and we could do this with this. Or I was like, we should make a competition team rash guard. Or like, you know, my mind actually never relaxes as far as ideas. Even today, I've been poking him to record his techniques, not the rolling. Because I said, you putting footage out of people rolling is like people watching cricket that don't know the rules. It's the worst sport in the world if you don't know the rules. But then when someone starts telling you about in swinger, out swinger, off leg spin, you're like, oh, this is a bit more spicy than I thought.
Okay.
So even then, I sometimes can't leave my work life to go to jiu-jitsu.
Okay, understood.
You would say that jiu-jitsu probably fills that space for like a lot of folks, right?
Yes.
Like I know it does for me too. I happily just sit and do business all the time, or like work, right? But then jiu-jitsu is the time to switch that shit off. And maybe it doesn't happen in the technique, but definitely when I've got some hungry fucking 20-year-old purple belt trying to rip my ankle off, I'm just thinking about that, you know, and that's that little break from the chatter.
Yeah, definitely. I love sparring. Before, when I was like a white belt, I actually was quite fearful of the sparring part.
People say, what's your secret, JT? Why are your muscles so pumped? Why are you so strong on the mats? Is it the secret sauce? No, it's not. It's hydration, my friends. I every day am using Sodi, Sodi. I use it in the morning first thing, usually when I have my creatine, and I also have it before training. I'll dilute a sachet into about 500, 600 mils of water, and it just keeps me going. I don't get headaches, I don't get cramps, and I don't get tired as quickly. So this is the sachet version. They also have tubs, which is really good too, and they have awesome flavors. This is my favorite, which is salty grapefruit. They have their citrus, they've got pineapple. They've got so many good flavors. It's definitely worth checking out. So you, my friends, if you would like to be better hydrated, feel pumped, feel strong, get on the real magic sauce, which is Sodi. You can get a 15% discount when you use discount code bulletproof15, sodi.com.au.
Because you're in the deep. I remember it actually being quite intimidating when I first came, because I'd come from 15 years of rugby where I thought I could handle myself. But then the first lever I pulled on at a white belt was effort, and I'd just be shaking at the end of a session, like my hands shaking. I'd skateboard to training, and after training I'd have to sit down for like 10 minutes with a Parry, just trying to come back to normal. But now I'm like the guy, I see the strong big footy white belts, I'm like, relax, brother. I've been here. I spent 6 months here. Come on, breathe with me. But yeah, and I love that. And also, like I said before, like sometimes if I go back to the UK, train at Hodges, I'm going to Texas in a few months, go to B team for like a week. Like, it's so cool that even if I'm out and about doing something, I can, or even I'm in Dubai in 3 weeks' time, I already know Team Nogira, amazing gym, amazing no-gi and gi classes. I'm already like, my hotel has to have laundry. So I was saying to my manager before, I was like, we need to stay in apartments with a washing machine. Because if we stay, even if you put us in like the W, I'm not getting bummed $100 a day on laundry, which is what they would do. So like everything has to work around jiu-jitsu.
Yep. And if I could just quickly ask, if that's all right, how did it start? Because for everybody, that initial step into jiu-jitsu is a funny thing. Like it's different for everyone. Everyone has a different like BJJ experience, whether it's a mate choking you out or you saw hoist Gracie or whatever it is. How did this obsession, addiction thing start for you?
This is interesting. So it's a 2-part story.
Please.
I started at 28, but I actually unofficially started at 24. I went to a local no-gi gym. I was playing rugby. I actually wanted something that might make me better at rugby. And I went to 2 sessions and we learned to triangle. And then fast forward that weekend, in the UK, there was an event called The Church. Aussies and Kiwis, you'd go to it. And it was like a midday rave on a Sunday in the Clapham Grand. But you just go there from the night before, but it was fancy dress. So they didn't even have a license for alcohol. So you'd buy a raffle ticket, but every ticket was a winner. And you'd get 4 cans of booze that they put in a plastic bag. And it was feral. So like we had like I'm pretty sure we had like a UV party, or no, it was Army v Navy, the rugby. So we went up dressed as like army, face paint, whatever. And that night, we get back to my mum and dad's, but it's 9 p.m, but we're fucking smashed because we started drinking like 10 a.m. So the weird thing is the Clapham Grand kicks out at 4 p.m. People are just out shopping and stuff, and you're obliterated, slurring your words. And then my mate, I think he was like taking his shoes off at my mum and dad's, and I slap him around the back of the head, and he's rugby tackled me. And I've just put him in a triangle. I've just learnt it this week. It's the only move I know in jiu-jitsu. And I remember just pulling on his head, or even maybe pulling on my shin. And next thing I know, he's just out cold. So when I open my legs, his head just hits the floor, like the tile. Oof. But the people around me, they start screaming, thinking I've killed him. But then this made me feel like I'd killed him. My sister screams. My mum and dad come through from the kitchen. Like, I've never seen it take someone so long to come round. It felt like minutes.
Oh, wow.
But I think it was maybe 45 seconds to a minute. His name was Rob. And then he stood up and passed out again because he wasn't expecting to pass out. And like for 45 seconds there, I actually thought my life was over. Like, I've killed one of my mates. And also, because I've only been to 2 sessions, no one's told me I'll lift the legs, rub the chest. This is normal.
Happens all the time.
I've just watched films where they just choke them for 10 seconds and they're dead.
die.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it again for 4 years. So that's the first part. I was like, I'm never doing that again. Because I was like, I'm going to kill someone.
Shit is witchcraft.
Yeah.
Too deadly.
I was like,
Rob hasn't been the same since, by the way. Go on.
he was a bit weird before. So then the next was I was living with a bodybuilder in Bondi, and we were in Freshwater Beach, and we were just
Bodybuilder, drug dealer?
a little bit, yeah. Stripper as well.
Of course.
Quintessential.
All the best. The
And he-
Trinity.
Bigger than me, stronger than me. And I remember like we got into like a tussle on Freshwater Beach, and he ended up taking me down, but I put him in like what I now know as closed guard, and I couldn't do anything with him. He's bigger than me, stronger than me, and I remember feeling quite powerless at that time. A really weird thing, right? Never really felt powerful before, but that moment, no matter what I was trying to do to him, I couldn't get him. And I thought, if I go away now and I start like jiu-jitsu or I inquire in my local gym, one day if this happens again, I could have him. And I'll never forget that feeling of powerlessness. So I sent an email to a gym in Bondi. I said, I want to start. It goes, cool. Got my gi, whatever. Started then. And since that, I've never actually been in like a physical altercation in like 6 or 7 years. Never put myself in one, never wanted to be in one. But like, there's part of me deep down that's quite almost excited that one day someone could be being inappropriate on a night out. Someone could be rude to someone, whatever it is, and you could actually step in with some kind of competency. Whereas I went through the first part of my life thinking, because I played rugby, I had some level of competency where I would have just got my head kicked in. So yeah, it was first of all nearly killing someone, then second of all feeling in a pair of budgie smugglers like I couldn't fight my mate who was on steroids and was a stripper.
Inspiring.
Bro, did you have, because I had a similar choke story when I, like early on when I learnt the rear naked choke for the first, not the first time, but I taught it to my sister in the kitchen. My mum was there and I'm like, Phoebe, this is how it works. She's got these long, thin arms and she, you know, she's putting it around my neck and I'm kind of adjusting it. Yeah, just here, trying to line your elbow up with my chin. Okay, yeah, and just squeeze. You know, like I'll tap once it's a thing, and then I wake up and I'm looking up at my sister, and she's looking down at me, and she's like, and then I look over, and my mum's at the kitchen table crying her eyes out, and she's put me out, like I've gone out, and I've gone limp in her arms, and she's like, oh my God, and she's lowered me down, and I'm lying on the ground with my head in her lap, and Mum just watched my eyes flicker, like roll back, so she says. And then she thought I just perished in front of her. Yeah.
My daughter has killed my son.
Yeah. You're like, because your parents probably like, do I do CPR? Because then their only thing is movies as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I a couple months ago put a guillotine on someone, and so I hadn't actually really choked anyone out unconscious in years. I don't think I'd ever done it properly. So I'm there putting on this, pretty sure it's an arm in guillotine. And I'm thinking, why is this guy not tapping? And I like shift my hips out a bit. And I'm there.
Harder.
But the craziest thing was not one part of my brain was he's asleep.
Yeah.
So I go around again and I feel like this
This
vibration.
motherfucker's not even responding to my attack.
How disrespectful.
Yeah, but I was like, in my head, I'm just
At
like,
least defend.
technique, what am I doing? Are my hips in the right place? If I put this, whatever. And then I feel a vibration and suddenly it hits me that he's snoring. So I let go of him. His head hits the mat. And he came round. By the end of the roll, he came up to me like, you okay? I was fucking traumatized because I was like, that duty of care you have to a training partner to make sure they're okay, feel out for a tap. My mind was off in the guillotine technique realm. I was not one part of me thought he's asleep. Yeah. And I was really shaken up by it. When his head hit the mat again, I was like, I think that was more traumatic for me than for him. Because like you genuinely in that moment think, fuck. Like there's something primitive in your brain, which is why like in fights, if someone goes limp, people stop fighting.
Yeah.
So like even if you were beating someone up for a legitimate reason, when they go limp, you stop.
Unless it's Dan Henderson hitting your boy Bisping.
Yeah, Yeah, something like that.
Extra shot.
So like,
H-bomb.
there's that weird thing inside you that when they do go limp, you're like, oh my God, are you okay?
Yeah.
What was I doing?
Have I committed murder?
Yeah.
It's true. I love watching a scrap on the street. And then as soon as you see a big hit and someone go out and like a limp body hit the floor, you're horrified. You feel sick. Yeah, like it really changes quickly.
Yeah, I think it's a tough thing. I mean, I've had possibly both experiences of being choked unconscious and choking someone unconscious.
I'm excited.
Why's that?
We have an apparel sponsor, Parry Athletic.
Bro, George came through, messaged us on the Instagram, said he's been following our program for ages. He's getting stronger and more mobile. And he's got this cool gear company called Parry, and he wants to send us some stuff.
And he told me that his mission was to create the best pair of training shorts ever.
Yeah, he wanted something that he could lift and roll in, and that could accommodate thick, muscular thighs and hips.
And that suits us.
Speaks to us.
Also, what I like is I love the colorful design. It actually looks really cool.
I am the most colorful dude on the mats these days, hands down.
I think the thing that I've loved about it is just it feels good. It feels good. It looks good. And you, ladies and gentlemen, can get a discount when you go to checkout. If you go to parryathletics.com, put in the code bulletproof20 and you get 20% off. Oh, yeah.
But possibly the funniest version of that is a client of mine who's not a very confident, slightly overweight young lady, Filipino. Her name is Valerie. I was saying it's really easy to choke someone unconscious. You don't have to be big and strong. This is when I first started jiu-jitsu. I don't like a blue belt. But I'd never explained tapping to her because I thought it was universal. And we're in a gym. We're in a high-end boutique gym in the Rialto Towers, like CEOs and partners of law firms around. And I was pretty unorthodox at that stage anyway. But so I sat on a flat bench and I said, you stand and you choke me. And she was like, she got it straight away. And I'm tapping and she's squeezing harder. And I'm tapping, she's squeezing harder. And my friend Will, shout out white collar grappler, he's like, no, stop. I'm like, and I start drooling, and I'm drooling on her arm, and I'm out. My eyes are open, but I'm gone. And then she lets go, and I just fall and smash on the ground. She's like, I've killed him. And she starts crying. And Will's like, no, it's all right. Like, he'll be fine. Lifts up my legs. Like, I come around, and I was like, oh, what? And I was like, oh, good job, but why didn't you stop? She's like, I thought you were encouraging me. You were like, good job, keep going. Good job, keep going. Gone. So there is something, and I think this is the cool thing about doing jiu-jitsu. It is incredibly primal, this idea that, and part of the reason why we possibly love the UFC, the popularity of the UFC is this gladiator-esque, if this were the wild, you're dead. I win. This is there's no advantages here. It's not the ref's decision. It's win or lose, live or die type situation. I think that even if you're someone who doesn't understand it, that's super primal how that hits you. And yeah, it's pretty full on.
I got a question about what you said earlier. You know, with when you get more successful, you have yes people around you, and so it's almost like jiu-jitsu has been a form of exposure for you, where you just like all of that, the facade, right, of success is taken away, and you're exposed, you're vulnerable, and that's kind of real. I know this is something that you probably do talk about, like in your books and whatnot, but I'm sure, was there a part of you that was reluctant to put yourself into a space where you are exposed, coming from a position of safety?
Do you know what? There were always like moments in my mind where I was like, probably more at blue belt, where some people come for you. I remember I trained at a gym in London where this black belt kept mounting me, 110 kg black belt, like competed.
So smaller than you.
Big guy, scary guy.
120.
Only just smaller than James.
But he would mount me and bang these wrist locks on, and I was like, "What are you trying to prove?" Like, I'm a blue belt. I've had my blue belt like 3 months. I was like, "You're actually hurting me," and I felt pretty powerless at that. And then there was times where people would get excited, but then it kind of got to a point where I would say at blue belt, there was a period where I was still a little bit soft. And I remember when the lockdown came, I did sessions with a brown belt called Luke Howard. He trains in Bali. He's an MMA guy.
I remember.
Yeah.
And he beat the fuck out of me. And I was like, mate, I'm paying you.
Luke came and trained with Jess that night.
Yeah, I know who Luke is, yeah.
I said, mate, I'm paying you $100 an hour. And he was like, harden the fuck up. And he would literally he was like, you've got to fight, mate. Like, and he would expose like some smelly positions or whatever. And then I remember with Isaac Michelle, I do maybe 2 privates with him a week. And every time I came to a private, I'd just be like asking questions. And he actually really helped me piece a game together, which I didn't really have before. And his insights were really like kind of invaluable. And I actually think that so much of the things that I teach people now, whether even in class or like when I say, hey mate, don't actually do this. I think someone for your size, you should do this. I got from him. And then it got to a point where I was like, if people have seen you online, like your content, don't like your content, whatever, that's on you to protect yourself. So like there was a point where I was like, someone might get a bit excited, and people still do get excited, but now I actually quite like it. So sometimes, and this sounds like a real cocky thing, like if someone comes to the gym or the gym that I'm training at, like I will always preemptively think that this person might be trying to prove something. So like, but that's on me. I don't want to put them in danger, but I don't want to put myself in danger. And also sometimes I make up a scenario in my head that I think people will see you online and go, oh, he's only got a purple belt because he's got 1 million followers. So sometimes, especially at competition, although, I've been at comp in the pen where people go, I love your podcast. I'm like, mate, I've got to fight you in 5 minutes. Can you not? I'm
trying to focus in, bro.
Like, sorry, bro.
Yeah, mate. And I'm like, stop that.
Do you remember what I said to you when I saw you at comp?
What about getting...
Asked you if you're nervous.
What did I say?
I was making small talk. Hey, man, how you going? Hey, what's up? And I was like, hey, nervous? And you go, nah.
But this is...
Nice. I was
like, okay, alpha move.
But you know what? I
Were you about
I was
to
trying
roll?
to meet you on your
Were
level,
you about
but
to
I guess
roll?
we're not on the same level.
Were you about to roll?
I tried getting amped up for matches, and it never worked.
Yeah.
So like you see people like pacing around, headphones in. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a bit of that.
Yeah.
And then
Slapping themselves and shit.
I get too excited.
Talking in Portuguese. Blah, blah,
Dancing.
blah.
It actually makes me more nervous doing that, getting my heart rate up. Now it's kind of probably why I fucked my hand up last match, but I don't even like warming up. And again, Isaac said this to me. He was like, if you can treat comps like training and treat training like comps, and find that middle ground, they're not different. And I think that was probably the best bit of advice, where even if it's only open mat, you got to turn up, because someone could, if you're not switched on and someone lands on you awkwardly, that's your fucking leg gone, you're out for 6 months. But the same at comp, try and keep your heart rate down and don't worry about giving up your position. I've actually gone back and looked at my blue belt matches, and most of the things that have gone wrong, it's from people actually attacking my ego, where they pass my guard and I'm like, oh, you're not passing my guard. I frantically panicked and redlined and gassed and then got choked out. Whereas like that kind of approach now, where I would almost be nonchalant and arrive at a match, and if I lose and I get off the mat not tired or not sweaty, I'm like, okay, that's actually probably better for my long-term strategy. Go back, reflect, change my game than it is to try and go absolutely crazy. So I think when I last saw you, I was like, I don't want to be nervous. I'd rather be under aroused than over aroused. And I actually say that again to the lower belts. I go, mate, you have like a savage 5-minute round with white belt. I go, you've now got to sit out for 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes you're not learning because you were trying really hard with me. I was like, imagine we just finish this round and you're fine. And you didn't score any points and you didn't submit me at all, but you're fine. Like, surely being in that position to go into your next round is a better net position for you. Because let's be real, you're a white belt. You shouldn't really be subbing many of the higher belts. So just roll with them. And yeah, I think that before with the competing, I was like, oh, someone might take the piss or whatever. But now it's just like, that doesn't really matter. You can do it or you can't. And like, I think that if they beat you or they get excited or whatever, you just got to manage that yourself.
Yes, indeed. Mate, there's so much going on in your world. So for those of you out there listening to this who are not familiar, this man has written a few books. He's written a few books and have done very well. So not a diet book. So often what people say is to do the negative doesn't necessarily lead to the positive. You know, as you say, don't forget, and people forget. It's interesting to me because, having a look at, what you've done, not a diet book, not a life coach, but then more recently, dropped the knot and gone to confident. Let's just go to what it is we're going for. Can you speak just a little bit on the process of taking your ideas and your philosophy and turning them into books?
So not a diet book was, everyone has like a system, the 5-2 diet, the 800 calorie diet, like all of this bullshit. Like no one's really talking about the principles behind them.
Yep.
So like, someone could, have all of these. It's kind of like missing the fundamentals. Like so many people learn subs and they learn passes without understanding the principle of the game, which is points, dominance, all of those things. So like John Danaher's one of the people that, although he's quite elongated with his verbal approach,
that's the way to put it.
Yeah,
That's a very nice way to put it.
before he talks about half guard, he talks about like the philosophy of it. He's like, there's a conundrum. He actually gets you to understand the predicament you're in before showing you a technique. So the idea of the first book was to say, hey, why don't you understand energy balance? Why don't we discuss a bit of nuance? There was even, when I wrote that book at the time, the most popular study of like muscular hypertrophy by Brad Schoenfeld was like, if you equate volume, the result would be the same. And I was like, this is what the evidence say, but I was like, I fundamentally disagree, because if you split up the same amount of volume, you could get intensity to be higher. And I was like, just trying to say to people like, look, how you want to split up your volume is up to you, but this is what the literature says, this is what I think. Then there'd be other things like, intermittent fasting, just really breaking it down to say like, look, you fucking eat less. However, if you feel like you get benefits from it, great. If you feel like you're hungry in the mornings and that's not, it was more like giving them the tools. Like it's almost like a blue belt ramped up course. Because when someone has the fundamentals, every other piece of the puzzle comes on top. Then there was some advice I gave in that book that wasn't fitness related, like sunk cost fallacy, where people remain invested in an endeavor based on their previous energy, effort, or resources they put into it. So like some people might be holding crypto with a coin that bombed, but they're like, I can't sell now because I've already spent so much money in it. Or it might be everyone's got that relationship where they're in a shitty relationship and you're like, why are you guys still together? And they're like, oh, we've been together 7 years. And they're using the 7 years as a reason they can't leave, not the state of the relationship. So then when I wrote the first book, people came up to me and they're like, I got out a really shitty relationship from your book. And I was like, it was supposed to be a fucking fitness book. Like, no one said to me, mate, the way you explain macros was amazing. Like, actually none of the fitness content banged with anyone. It was the stuff where I was veering out of my lane. So then when not a life coach, I was like, I don't want to be the next Tony Robbins or any of that shit. So I was like, guys, not a life coach, but here's some advice, whether it was how to get out of a shitty marriage. Something really important to me personally was growing up, my parents never pressured me to get a mortgage or to buy a house. So like I was 27, no savings, no real, I was at 28 on paper. I had like $6,000 to my name. So many of my friends had bought houses, moved in with their partners. They were getting on with their life. If my parents had been more like, you need a mortgage to be successful, I would never have come to Australia. So just like having that big brother effect in the second book was really important. The third book, How to Be Confident, I kind of think that I might have packaged it wrong, because the first two books I came out from, the first one was, hey, here's some advice, I'm just a PT. The second one was, here's some life advice from my own personal anecdotes, but I'm not a life coach. The third one, I actually tried to position myself as an authority when I don't think I've earned the credit to do it. Like, I'm not a scholar, and I'm not as well-read or as well-rounded as any of the other authors that would present a title like that. So like if...
but does that matter?
I think like if you had like Robert Greene, if you were to have Mark Manson, if you were to have Ryan Holiday, or these people that present like, this is how the Stoics did, this is why you shouldn't give a...
Yeah, but they're nerdy historians. They don't strike me as confident people. You do strike me as a confident person.
You say that about Ryan Holiday.
And Ryan Holiday, run away. I'll fight you. Like, I love Ryan Holiday, but you're not very stoic if you run away from me, mate. Like, you can run all day. I'll kill you in a fight.
Where's your combative competency?
Exactly.
But with
Ryan Holiday doesn't fucking wrestle. He just runs. It's like, what are you scared of, mate?
there's mate, that...
I'll challenge all these.
I didn't like you at first, but I actually think you're pretty cool.
No. I've followed him for a long time, but I'm like the 50 Cent of podcasts. I'll pick a fight with anyone I know I can bully.